Thank you all for joining us. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Joining us now, best-selling author, former prosecutor with the federal government, Chuck Ambrose. Chuck, good to have you with us.
Good morning, sir.
Well, here we are on KIDO Talk Radio. First and foremost, you've prosecuted at the highest levels. For people not familiar with your extensive prosecutorial experience with the U.S. Attorney's Office, with the federal government, with the Air Force, can you, I guess if we were putting you on the stand, we're establishing credibility, sir.
Okay. Got out of law school. The Air Force made me one of their circuit prosecutors, which meant I was doing absolutely nothing but prosecuting courts martial for, 5 or 6 years straight. Probably did in excess of 200 of those. Had a circuit that ranged from the Carolinas west to Arkansas and south all the way to the Republic of Panama. So that was quite a bit of trial experience, and we used all of the federal rules. The only real difference in military prosecutions from federal civilian prosecutions is that you have some purely military offenses to deal with once in a while, like AWOL and desertion and disavowal of a direct order. After doing that and doing some appellate work, I went across the river from Bolling Air Force Base to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C., and was hired there as an assistant U.S. attorney by Joe DeGeneva, who now represents the president. I worked in the D.C. office for a few years, then transferred out to Kansas City, tried everything from mafia cases, murders, big conspiracy cases, you name it. So altogether in excess of 30 years of federal trial experience.
And why did you leave the Department of Justice?
Well, I could have stayed for another year, but as with a lot of other folks reading the tea leaves wrong, I really feared that Hillary Clinton was going to be elected, and I was getting sick and tired of working for what was becoming more and more apparent, and that was a very corrupt Department of Justice. And I had some things to say and ran the numbers, and the extra Social Security at $15 a month for staying another year just didn't matter. And so I retired earlier than I had planned to and made my way out to the beautiful Treasure Valley. Happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you here. First, it's been a while. Your thoughts on Peter Strzok's testimony?
Wow. If I'd had that lizard on the stand, well, first of all, after, trying to debrief him and prepare him for trial, I would never use the guy. There are some people whose demeanor, whose attitude is just so off-putting, if that's a word. No jury on earth would give them any credibility, and he would certainly fit into that mold. So, if I was trying to prepare a case and there was someone else available who could say the same thing, I would go their direction. I have never seen a more smug, self-righteous guy in my life as I did with his appearance before Congress. It was horrific. And to think that that guy, and, now we know that when the Intelligence Service IG briefed the FBI on the fact that the Chinese had hacked into Hillary Clinton's server, Strzok was one of the people they briefed. And instead of choosing to do something about that, which may have saved some lives in China in terms of CIA assets who were liquidated, he, buried that and kept going after what he thought to be a bigger danger, since, in the minds of people like him and McCabe and Comey, it was up to them to save America from itself. And so they washed that all under the rug and went after Trump.
All right, Chuck, here we are. You've worked at the highest levels. As we said, in your opening, you read the tea leaves. Let's talk about Bruce Ohr. Let's talk about Comey. You were the first one to disclose, even before the national people, that Comey and Mueller were friends, that had been boys for years. So let's I guess first let's talk a little bit about Bruce Orr and what we've learned this week and what you've learned.
Okay, he's now we know the funnel that was dealing directly with the Steele character, and who basically injected that whole supposed basis for the dossier into the DOJ system, including the FBI. In terms of what he did wrong, he concealed from his superiors the fact that his wife was not only working for Fusion GPS, the Clinton firm that was responsible also for paying Steele for the dossier, but he did not include those payments to his wife into their joint bank account on his financial statement. That's a felony. Every year we had to fill out financial conflict data and submit them as federal prosecutors and DOJ attorneys. And you had to certify under penalty of perjury that you had included all relevant information. And that went in as far as, whatever stocks you might own, because they didn't want you having a conflict of interest in doing an insider trading case or prosecuting somebody from a corporation in which you had an interest. So he buried that information and then basically took a big syringe and injected poison into the system in the form of this Steele information. It's amazing to me that he still works there. But, for anybody that has not worked in Washington, again, it is a small town in terms of who knows who, and when you get to the higher levels of any department, there are clubs and cliques. You have Rosenstein, who to me is the Rasputin in this whole thing. I have to say that I think the most underreported element of all of this scandal to date is the fact that when Rosenstein wrote the appointment letter to Mueller, he limited the scope of Mueller's investigation to collusion by the Trump campaign with Russia and anything else that might arise out of that investigation. So when people say, why isn't Mueller going after Hillary? He is not allowed to because Rosenstein is protecting her. Why might he be doing that? Because he was involved himself, that being Rosenstein, in burying the Uranium One case. And, we talk about Comey knowing Mueller. Rosenstein's first boss at DOJ was Mueller. So you've got these three peas in a pod. And, here Rosenstein recommends to Trump that Comey be fired and then turns around and opens an investigation for obstruction into the firing of Comey. You cannot make this stuff up. It's just absolutely absurd.
So where do we go from here?
Well, the media has been making a lot recently out of the conviction of Manafort, which has nothing to do with the Trump campaign. And the technique that Mueller and his people have been using is this. Let's find a real violation that may have nothing to do with Trump, and let's try to turn that into an admission. Let's leverage these people on whom we have criminal leverage and make them say things about Trump. Now, Manafort to date has refused to do that, to his credit. I mean, if the guy violated the tax laws and laundered money, then, that's his fault. He needs to go down for it. But he hasn't given any information on Trump and may not do so. Certainly what he did with his Ukrainian clients 10 or 15 years ago has nothing to do with Trump and Russian collusion. You look at the Flynn case. Here's a guy who refused to register or neglected to do so as a foreign agent of the Turkish government and was taking a lot of money from him. So Mueller and company squeeze him. And to date, I'm not aware of anything he's said about the Trump campaign, but instead of prosecuting him for the real offense, that being the failure to register as a foreign agent, they turned it into a 1001 lying to the FBI. And we'll get to something else in a minute in terms of their technique of what I call speaking indictments. But in all of these cases, they twist the indictment to make it look like it's about Trump when it has nothing to do with it. Now, let's talk about the Cohen case, because that's the most interesting one and the one they're trying to get the most mileage out of. In order to convict anyone of a campaign violation, you first have to answer two questions. Whose money is it? If it's the candidate's money, there is no violation at all, regardless of where the money goes. There's no limit on how much he can spend, and he can use his own money for whatever he wants to use it for. The second question is, if it's not his money, then you look at the statute's definition section. And the definition of the term contribution in the federal election laws is this: anything of value made for the purpose of influencing any election for federal office. So it stands to reason that if there's another reason for the payment, such as keeping your wife in the dark from an affair you may or may not have had, or just, as Miss Clinton used to say, keeping the bimbo eruptions down, then there is no campaign violation. Again, if he used his own money to do so, even if he intended to influence the election, there's no violation. But that theory has only been tried once, and that was in the John Edwards case a few years back. And
which is very different, because Edwards was using the campaign's money. Chuck, can you hang on for a minute?
I certainly can.
Our great friend, U.S. Attorney Chuck Ambrose, joining us, best-selling author. Can't wait to hear what he's doing on Amazon. He was chomping at the bit to give us the real truth, the real insight. We'll hear more from Chuck Ambrose next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Joined now by retired U.S. Attorney Chuck Ambrose, best-selling author. We'll get to that, Chuck. I know you don't want to talk about that, but that's the only way I can compensate you, brother. So,
it's okay.
So back to Comey, Mueller, or ethics, Strzok, Page. This is why we love having you on, because you can put it all together for us, not like speculating like the folks in the media do, but through the real life. We were talking about the difference between the allegations against the president and what happened with John Edwards.
Well, they're similar in this fashion. Both had to do, in theory, with an extramarital affair. I'll say in theory in Trump's case, because we don't have the proof yet, although there's a lot of smoke flying around. But let's assume it happened. If you go back to the Edwards case, where he had this affair with, I believe her name was Rielle Hunter, and they actually had a baby together while his wife was dying of cancer, swell guy. His campaign, it wasn't his money, but his campaign funneled money to Rielle Hunter to keep her mouth shut. And the Justice Department, ironically, this is, I believe, the 2008 campaign when Edwards was running against Hillary and Obama for the nomination, if I'm not mistaken. Hillary's friend Lanny Brewer was then in charge of the criminal division at DOJ, and they went after Edwards on these campaign violations and indicted him. And the judge in that case, after reading the statute, instructed the jury that if the donor, in other words, the campaign, would not have made the payment, notwithstanding the election, it does not become a campaign contribution merely because the payment might have some impact on an election. What are they saying? They're saying that the fact that there can be two reasons for this payment. One, to keep Ms. Hunter quiet, and maybe it might have an impact on the election. That doesn't get you there. If there's an innocent explanation as far as the campaign statute goes, you do not convict. And the jury did not convict. And so, again, we look at, first of all, is it Trump's money? If it is, you don't even answer the second question. But even if it's not Trump's money, you still have to say that the only reason this payment to Stormy Daniels or the other gal was made was to influence the election. And that's a bar that nobody has been able to make yet. And what you have here is the Southern District of New York, which, believe me, has a reputation among all the other U.S. attorneys' offices for being a bunch of prima donnas who do not play well with others. But they apparently have a tie-in with Mueller. And so they're running this out there in a guilty plea, not in something that's going to see a jury. That brings one other question into mind. Even in a guilty plea, the judge supervising the plea is supposed to ensure that there are enough facts on the table for him to accept the plea and to make sure that he believes it's a violation of law. Now, who is the judge in the Cohen case? It's William H. Pauley III, who was appointed by Bill Clinton. So, what we're dealing with here in the final analysis is an elitist bias that comes out of this clique that was in control under Obama for so long, and it is tied to the Clintons. And everywhere you turn, there's another deep state asset that is just upset to hell and back that one who is not one of their own is elected and is doing a good job running the country, and they are, Machiavelli would be very proud. The end justifies the means. They're going to do whatever it takes to bring him down.
Our great friend Chuck Ambrose joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So, Chuck, when we take a look at, let's go to the Attorney General. Your thoughts on former Senator Sessions, and has he, the law is the law according to him?
Well, anybody who's practiced law knows that that's what should be the case, but that because you have wild cards like judges in every case, that is not how it's applied. You can always find an attorney to give you a second opinion saying something else. And I think that Mr. Sessions has been the worst appointment that the president has made, one, because it cost him a Senate seat, but two, because he has done nothing but protect Rotten Rod Rosenstein and company when he should have had them on the streets about 2 minutes after taking office. Rosenstein is conflicted out in 16 different ways on this thing, should not be in a position to have ever appointed Mueller. There was no statutory basis for the appointment of Mueller. This is, in fact, a witch hunt, and Sessions has done absolutely nothing to control it. He was not required to recuse himself in the first place. It was an ostrich move. And for him to sit there and then praise Rosenstein and others who've been involved in this process from the jump is absurd. He needs to be removed. I am hoping what the president is waiting to do is when he gains additional seats in the Senate, which I expect him to do in the midterms, he should have a safe voting pad to approve the appointment of a successor to Sessions, and Sessions should be resigning already if he had any self-esteem, but I think he'll be fired after the midterms and we'll see somebody else in that job. I hope that's true.
Chuck, let me talk to you about something that the lib Chuck Todd talked about, that instead of going with Mueller, you're going to look for more lawsuits or more of these local yokel prosecutors, whether it's the Southern District, whether it's New York City courts, filing suits against the president with these frivolous claims that he broke the law in things that, had nothing to do with his run for the White House, but then, again, death by 1,000 cuts. We've never seen that before. It's a shrewd strategy, and Todd started breaking down all these, whether, again, the Southern District or other courts, smaller courts, that's what they would seek to do to go after Trump.
Well, I mean, anyone can file a civil suit in this country for anything. Whether or not it has merit, whether or not it proceeds to even a discovery process is something completely different. That, again, is controlled by the judge assigned to the case. So is that a possibility? Sure. Can they move forward with a criminal indictment? That's highly doubtful. You've got government sovereign immunity statutes protecting people in office for the execution of their office. There is a memo in DOJ saying that a sitting president cannot be indicted, that impeachment is the only avenue to take him out, if you want to use that term. Do I expect the left to give up on their, holy mission as they see it to get rid of this guy? Of course not. They're going to try everything they can. We as citizens of the country who live in this poor, ignorant flyover area and not on the East Coast where they know everything, have one thing we can do, and that's to vote. And I hope that everyone will turn out and vote to stem the so-called blue wave that they think is coming. I don't believe that it is going to come, actually. If the polls are as accurate as they were about the presidential election, we may actually see a red wave instead of a blue one.
Chuck, what do you expect Mueller to do?
Well, not follow the law. I think that what we'll probably see will end up being a report which will violate grand jury secrecy. The way the system is supposed to work, that anything obtained through a grand jury subpoena or testimony should not make its way into anything other than an indictment. But the way he and Weissman and several of these other true believers have been proceeding has nothing to do with the law, so he will probably take that which is supposed to be protected by secrecy and include it in his report in an attempt again to dirty up President Trump.
Chuck, let's talk a little bit about your new career as an author.
Well, we've had a couple of amazing days, and I really can't tell you why. I wish I knew why. I'd love to replicate them, but all the books are available on Amazon. And the last one that came out, which the title is Death Votes Last, concerns a plot line in which the Senate is evenly split, and rather than waiting on an election, one side takes out another senator on the other side by trying to frame him for DWI, and he actually has a wreck and dies. And so there's a cover-up of this, other murders occur, and a final prosecution. So it's pretty timely in terms of the climate in Washington. And over the past 2 days, according to Amazon, we've had 50,000 pages read in that book alone. And if somebody had told me as a poor, unwashed, self-published independent author that, 100 people would have read my book in 2 days, I never would have believed it before seeing the stats. So humbling, gratifying. We'll have to do another show someday on the difference between the traditional publishing game and the self-publishing game, because that's a whole other topic. But we've been lucky enough to have one of the books in the series actually hit number one on an Amazon sales ranking. And to do that without the benefit of traditional publishing and advertising has been a very wild ride.
Well, Chuck, we can check out your work at Amazon, and if you could quickly, sir, let people know how the title of your book and your pen name.
Pen name is Mark, M-A-R-C, last name Rainer, R-A-I-N-E-R. Again, a tribute to two family members I lost to cancer, my younger brother and my mom. Her maiden name, his first name. The first book is Capital Kill. The second is Horns of the Devil. The third, Death's White Horses. The fourth, The Winter of Wolves. And again, this last one, Death Votes Last. They're all crime dramas, and if you plug the phrase crime drama into the Amazon Kindle stores, right now those books pop up 1 through 5 in their search engine. So again, we're very happy with the success of the whole thing.
Well, Chuck, thank you. Thank you for your service, and you have a great day, sir.
You too. Thanks for everything you do, Kevin.
Our great friend Chuck Ambrose joining us. Traffic and weather together, KIDO Talk Radio. And we go out to L.A., Los Angeles, California. Michelle Polino joining us from Fox News Radio, remembering the Queen. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we take a look at Aretha Franklin. Obviously, how do you put into words her contributions to American entertainment and culture?
It's interesting. I don't think you can. Taylor Swift said that the other night at her concert in Detroit. There's really no words that describe Aretha Franklin's contribution to society, from just being like one of the, I think, first and foremost female superstars, to being a gospel queen, to being an R&B queen to being the queen of soul. It's incredible. She also her songs empowered a whole, I think, 3-4 generations of women, and they keep on doing it even posthumously.
When we take a look at just where she began, it's a different country than when she left us.
It's true. When she began, there was separation of blacks and whites. They weren't allowed to drink at the same water fountain. It was extraordinarily strange when you think about it. Just extraordinarily strange. But that's when she started, and it was through perseverance and singing her heart out that she became, and I think it's probably her right to sit on the throne of just one of the greatest, as being one of the greatest, most revered singers of all time.
Indeed. What about the impact she had on, the people of today, the Taylor Swifts, the music today that is more dependent on technology than ever before? I'll be politically correct.
Well, I think everything evolves. I mean, back in the day, it was the devil's music, wasn't it? Rock and roll and Elvis and soul. People were fearful of that. Now, as it evolved, where we are today, we're in a technologically driven world. So music's going to be technologically driven. There's actually not going to be singers. There's going to be people that, auto-tune their voice. It's just all part of the evolvement of who we are as humans. But I know that she reveres many. There was an interview that she did not long ago. She reveres many of the singers today. She talks about, obviously, Whitney's past, but Whitney Houston. She talked about Adele. She thinks Adele's amazing. If you remember the same interview, she's like, well, Taylor Swift, she wears nice gowns.
Sure.
But, wasn't a big fan. But Taylor doesn't have the booming voice. She just doesn't. Taylor's a great songwriter. She's a great songwriter and a great performer, but every performer brings something different to the table. Not every singer has a great voice. We all know that with Madonna. Madonna didn't have a great voice, but she was driven, and she did it, and she became a superstar. But Aretha had a gift. And not only did she have a gift, but she had a gift in the embodiment of a black woman, which in her day and age led to many things, among them being part of a movement, being part of an era, being part of a cause, a civil rights cause. And she did that through her music. She did that through her songs with respect, and so many others. I mean, it's hard for me to fathom that song was written by a man about a man, and she did it it was a cover. And she took it, and she not only made it hers, but she made it an anthem for women.
That she did. Finally, I had a chance to catch the Showtime documentary on Whitney Houston.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you've caught that one yet, but...
I did. I watched... There's 2 out, and I watched both of them. That one's really good.
It was a little filler at the end, because there was a lot of concert footage, but just how they marketed Whitney Houston, and then the pushback she had from the R&B community, and then... Yeah,
that was interesting, right?
Right, and her relationship with her mother and such. And, a lot of us were just like, when we think of Whitney Houston, I just want to dance with someone, but we forget how, like Aretha Franklin, how gifted Whitney Houston was with that incredible voice.
I agree. you bring up a really good point. Let's look at these two singers, both extremely gifted women. And the one, grew up in both of them grew up in church, right?
Yep.
That's where they got their chops. That's where they got their singing chops. And Whitney was pushed into a pop superstar. Aretha didn't have that luxury. So she had to kind of break her own rules. And she did it with such, it's interesting, she did it without seemingly being obtrusive at all. Like, it was almost like her voice gave her the grace to open any door.
Talk about a true meritocracy.
Yeah. Really extraordinary. And these two women, both gifted, and, one kind of manipulated by the business, another one actually took control of it.
Yes. You would be Aretha and I would be Whitney. One taking control of the business, the other manipulated by it. Michelle Pollino, we always appreciate it.
Very good. Yeah, always great.
Take care, ma'am.
You got it. All right, bye.
Bye-bye. All right. You can always tell when she's done with us. Coming up next, what you can do for someone special here in the Treasure Valley. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Out to David Ferdinand, who joins us on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, David.
Okay. Good morning, Kevin.
Well, what can we do for you?
Hey, this afternoon and tomorrow, we've got a special event that I just wanted to make sure we let the Valley know about. The Ross family experienced the loss of a dad that was an airman from Caldwell, in Air National Guards person out here in Boise. And his family went through a tragic loss of his husband, and so they're having a yard sale this afternoon. Anybody wants to help or come donate from 2 o'clock this afternoon until 6, and then again tomorrow from 8 to 12. And he's got a small family of 4 kids and a wife, and we knew that the Patriots on KIDO would certainly want to help his family, so we wanted to make sure, Kevin, that you guys knew about it. It's at the Syme Real Estate office over in Caldwell by the new theater and by the post office, and Patty Syme, our broker, wanted to make sure we let you guys know about it.
Sure. Can you tell us a little more?
Well, this family was actually traveling, in a motor home that they wanted to go out and have, some family memory time here about a month ago, and got in an accident and actually threw the dad out, so this is just a tragic loss. One of our agents, this was a son-in-law, and we're just trying to bind not only the real estate community together, but this is such a great place we live, and we know if people know about it, that they would certainly come out and help. Here, this guy was in security out there. He'd been to training, moved up here, and getting the Idaho lifestyle together. He was an inspector for the real estate industry, and just a great guy and a great family. Kids I think they're from 8 down to about 11 months. It's just one of those tragic things that happens, in some lives, and we wanted to step up and see if we could make a difference. They've got a GoFundMe page, too, I think, for the Ross family. His name was Lucas Ross, and so the Ross family over in the Caldwell area, and, of course, this being a Idaho Air National Guardsman, leaves behind this beautiful family, and I knew you'd want to help, Kevin.
Well, we appreciate that, David Ferdinand. For the Syme Real Estate office, where is that, and a phone number if people want more information, sir?
I would certainly give them Patty's number 208-573-9300, but it's on 9th Avenue 206 9th Avenue South in Caldwell, right by the post office and by the new Lux Real Theater in Caldwell, across from the old pizza parlor there. And, you know, it's just a community event from 2 to 6, and people can bring stuff or come donate. The wife is going to be there this afternoon to make sure people know every dime goes to this family, every dime stuff. So, we talk about a lot of things. We want to fix our country. We don't have to fix our community. We know they come alongside stuff like this. So we appreciate it, Kevin.
God bless you, Brother Ferdinand.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye. Traffic and weather together, KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning.
Going up to the Spirit in the sky. Man, what a lot of hoopla for a conservative. You'd think he was the king of England. I'm watching it on CBN. And you know what that is, saying it the other way. Oh, we've really gone downhill. You think this was a really, really big, big deal. He was a Republican senator. Bigger send-off than Elvis. But, hey, that's today.
You were all about John McCain. You were all about John McCain yesterday.
Oh, I like John McCain, but this is ridiculous. You know what this is costing the taxpayer? I mean, how about you, Kevin? Are you getting buried in the ground? Not me. I'm going right from the corner, right to the oven.
A lot of people are going to the oven. Why is that?
Because I always wanted to be like John McCain, a fighter pilot that went down in a big crash and burned up. So, yeah, I want to be burned. I want my ashes spread all over the world.
Well, I hope you're not alive when that happens.
I want some spread on the chair in your studio, too. You stay fired up. Have a good Labor Day weekend, Kevin, and don't smoke too much
It would fit right in with the dirt in here.
Oh, this is ridiculous. I'm turning this off, this TV out, while I even watch it. Bye, Johnny McCain. See you when I get there.
I thought you didn't watch TV.
I have to this morning because I worked too hard yesterday. I can't get motivated.
Well, you've fallen and you can't get up.
That happens to me a lot. And where were you when I needed your help yesterday?
It's a story of my life. I told you. I'm not a man. I'm not a man when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, right. You're a man's man. Anyway, this is crazy. This is something England would do.
So you're mad at people remembering John McCain.
I'm mad they're using this country as a socialist country like this and spending all this money to... I mean, the guy was a good guy. He was a warrior. He was a POW. He was a senator. But big deal. There's people that have worked 10 times harder out there. How about all the other POWs that were in Vietnam as POWs? Do you see them on CBN and all the other channels with people all gathered around with a flag over their coffin? No. They're just as important. Anyway, that's all I got, Kevin.
Pretty weak. Pretty weak today.
Well, I waited all day. I listened to your show all day, and I thought, you talk about weak. Stay fired up. Have a good weekend.
All right. Don't forget Spirit of Boise Balloon Classic tonight, tomorrow morning, Sunday morning. We so appreciate you. Monday morning we'll have some Fox News stuff on. Very exciting for that. Then we'll be broadcasting from D.C. on Wednesday and Thursday, and we'll be out and about trying to get some news of the day for you in between that. Remember, we're always live at Kevin Miller Show on Facebook, at KIDOTalkRadio.com, or just plain Kevin Miller. Appreciate all of you. Have a blessed weekend, and if you're traveling, be safe. You're always on our minds, and especially in our prayers. Don't forget, Spirit of Boise Balloon Classic brought to you by CapEd Credit Union. Ray Maya, great job. And we'll talk to you from Washington. God bless and keep the faith.